Hi, and a very warm welcome back to the HSP Connection podcast with me, Philippa Robinson.
And me, Robbie Lee. This is where we share our stories, our insights, and strategies to help fellow highly sensitive people navigate their own path to living a fulfilling and meaningful life. And before we jump into the topic, Philippa, I just want to say how lovely it is to be recording with you again. We had batched some recordings so we could take some time off and be with family and enjoy some summer. But man, I missed these conversations. I'm really glad we're back.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking about that all day. I've been thinking, oh, great, I get to record this now because we recorded my evening and your morning. And I can't wait because I've missed our deep, meaningful conversations and us processing as we're going. So yeah, I am thrilled to be back again. And just before we start, can I just say that we're recording this just after the HSP Awakening Summit has finished. And wow, what a great experience that was. It was the first summit for both of us. Yep. We loved doing our talk. And actually we came up with that talk, or we realized that we are really passionate about that subject recording on this podcast because we realized how fired up we were getting talking about sensitivity being a strength. So yeah, that summit was wonderful. We made so many great connections. And hello to any new listeners that have come to us as a result of attending the summit. You're very welcome here. Yeah, it's great. And if anybody who's listening didn't manage to see our talk on the strength in sensitivity and you would like to see it, then if you get in touch with one or other of us, there will be contact details in the show notes. And just tell us that you want to see our talk. We can email, we can send it out to you. That is no problem, because this is going to go out after the time left to watch the replay. So by the time you hear this, you won't be able to catch the summit anymore. But yeah, reach out, tell us you'd like to have a listen, and we'll send it to you. And welcome new listeners, welcome faithful listeners. We're back. And yeah, it's just great.
Yeah, it really was great. And so happy to have our new listeners and continue to welcome the faithful ones.
Yeah.
And with that, Philippa, what are we talking about today?
Well, today, I always say, well, don't I? Really need to stop saying that. Anyway, today I suggested today's topic, and I wanted to talk about how, we're all HSPs. That's the point of this podcast. I'm an HSP, you're an HSP, the listeners are HSPs. But being an HSP doesn't mean that we're all the same. Yes. We are all our own unique HSP self. Being, the summit, listening to all the talks on the summit made me, I mean, I knew that anyway, but it really made me aware of how different we all are and how we have a different take on things, how the trait shows up differently for all of us. And I really wanted to talk about that, our own unique HSP self, and how that shows up. And also, as we're going to go talk about how it's not clear cut either. And we're going to talk a little bit about, how it shows up for us and how we're still working that out a little bit as well. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about. And you have graciously agreed that we can talk about this today, because actually it's a really great topic.
Oh yeah, it's a great topic. And what's interesting is we came at it from two different places, because I'd read an article that had my mind thinking about how different we are. And you brought this topic, and I thought, oh yeah, it's one of those stars aligned situations. We both have things to bring to the conversation. And I think it can just be so easy, especially when you find something out new about yourself, right? What happened, or as a thing starts becoming more visible in the world, it's like the stereotype of the thing is what is the most visible at first. And it can be easy just to be like, oh, we're all the same in this little bubble. And I'm really excited to have this conversation to talk about, sure, there are things that bring us together. And just a reminder to all of you out there, we are still unique individuals that maybe share some traits in there, but also have differences. And being an HSP is not one thing, and we're not all carbon copies of each other.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, here you are, you've got us two, and we're very different. I mean,
yes.
I think we really match, our values match, and we really, understand each other and get each other, but we are very different as well. Yeah. So here is a classic example already. I tell you what, would you tell us a little bit about what you read in that article?
Sure. So this is from Sensitive Refuge. For listeners, if you haven't checked out that blog, I do recommend it. And Andre Solo wrote this particular article, and he talks about 3 different buckets of folks within the highly sensitive bucket. And just as a preface and a reminder, all the traits of sensitivity are on a sliding scale, right? Sensitivity itself is on a sliding scale. So when we talk about humans being sensitive, some are in the low bucket, some are in the medium bucket. We're in the high bucket, sensitivity. But then within that and all those traits they're also on sliding scales. So anyway, so his 3 buckets. The first one he calls super sensor. So this is when you are really sensitive in your 5 senses. So bright lights, you notice those. You notice the smells, how things taste, how things feel on your body. Sound. Did I miss one? Anyway.
No, you did them all, I think.
So 5 senses. And so these are people who aren't filtering out a lot of that environmental information. So they can be really good at connecting the dots. They can be really good at noticing danger ahead, like way before anybody else, that type of thing. So that's the first one. You want me to give them all? Do you want to comment after each one?
What's better? Go on, let's have them all. And then,
okay. Then we'll dig into it. So the second one, he called the super feeler. In my opinion, in my mind, this is like the stereotypical HSP. So people who don't know much about high sensitivity, when they hear the word sensitive, I think they think about the super feeler, because this is the person who takes on everybody else's feeling, like feels the feelings, is a huge empath, highly empathic. So very attuned to messages from inside of themselves, like hunger, for example, and very attuned to messages outside, other people's feelings, the weather, all of that type of thing. So we had super sensor number 1, super feeler number 2. This third one is called an aesthete. So aesthetic sensitivity. So these are the people who walk into an area and it's like the vibe is wrong here. And, and then can notice what needs to be changed to fix that. They're the ones that can go in nature and just be in awe of the beauty, or see a piece of art and just get lost in that. Really imaginative or super creative people, those fall into that bucket. So that's high level of those 3.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then, the obvious question that comes after that is, okay, so which one are you? And, you did share those 3 with me just before we started recording. And I said, right, let's just record. Let's have the conversation like in real time because, I'm not sure which one of those I fall into. And I like to think I know a lot about high sensitivity. So, and this is just one way of looking at it. We'll come on to a few others in a moment. But I feel, I should imagine most of us will resonate to varying degrees with all 3 of those.
Yes, very likely.
And then I said to you earlier that I think if I had to identify with one of them, it would be super sensor. And then I went straight from that to, oh no, super feeler. So so maybe it's actually aesthete after all that. before I talk through all three of them and what they mean to me, what do you have a feeling about one of them instantly?
I don't have a feeling about one of them. I have a feeling about all three of them. and like two of them are off the charts high for me. So
Okay.
the super feeler and super sensor are really off the charts. And then I think I would be at least in the middle for the aesthete.
Okay.
So I mean, I think if we're talking about dials, like a lot of my dials are toward the high end
Yes.
on these things. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about for you?
Yeah. And so maybe they're just not quite so high for me, but I've definitely got all three of them.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
and what's really interesting is that this really ties into something that's happened for me in the last couple of weeks, if you don't mind me sharing. Is that all right?
Please share. I didn't want to bring it up in case you didn't want to, but I would love for you to share. Yeah.
So what's really happened for me in the last couple of weeks through, like the universe does, it gives us all these signals. In 2 days, I got the same message 3 times, and it was like, oh, okay. And so clearly there's something there for me. And the more I felt into it, the more I feel this is actually true. And there is definitely something here for me. In that, I mean, I discovered I was an HSP about 2.5 years ago. And when I learned about it, it felt right. I dived, I dived right into it and learned everything, a lot that I could get my hands on. And it was only 5 or 6 months after that that I signed on to Willow McIntosh's program to be a high sensory coach. And that I learned so much about my high sensitivity and my gifts and my strengths with Willow. And obviously in Willow's community afterwards is when I met you. We didn't do the training course together, but I met you afterwards. And there have been times along the way that I have questioned whether actually I am an HSP. I definitely have thought that. I can't tell you now why, but I know I've had doubts. And then I've gone, no, I am. I know I am. So the doubts haven't lasted that long, but I've definitely thought, am I really? And I think that has got a lot to do with this narrative around sensitivity. And, I don't know, sensitive people aren't great in groups of people or with, and can't spend long, with other people before they have to go and spend time on their own. And, they can, I'm making this up now, but, or they can't work hard all day because it's too much. And we need a lot of downtime and we need a lot of soft fabrics and all, all of that massive stereotype. And I think there must have been part of me that had bought into that. Mm-hmm. And there probably was, really, because I was 52 when I found out. So that's a lot of conditioning around the word sensitive before I got to that stage. And I definitely was told as a child to stop crying, otherwise I'd be given something to cry for. And I was clearly crying for a reason because I felt upset about something. So maybe that is how that conditioning played into it for me. But what I learned a couple of weeks ago is that I am an HSP for sure, but actually I might not appear as an HSP, not because I'm covering it up, but because I just think I'm one of those people who is can be, not all the time, larger than life. I can take up a lot of space in the room. I can appear to be very extrovert. And we might touch on extrovert and introvert in a minute. And so really my place in the world in the HSP world is now becoming, actually, this is also the face of HSP, even though I don't look like I am. And I think that is also what we were just talking about there, where we are on this scale. And I'm definitely not as high up the scale of sensitivity as you are, but my sensitivity plays out in a different way. And I am absolutely an HSP, because I just know those strengths we talked about in our talk. I mean, I know. I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I know some of those things are me.
Yes.
So, sorry, long story. I think, because when you were explaining it then, I'm thinking maybe actually I have the estate more than the other two. And now I'm not sure. And I just think I'm getting really bored with this. I'm probably midway, all three of them. And like I'm midway between introversion and extroversion. I probably am an ambivert. I'm midway on all these things, which on one hand, like embracing my sensitivity. I want to be more sensitive. I want to really be sensitive and on the really high, but I am who I am. Yes. I can't change it. You are who you are.
Yeah.
And I think what that gives me is just a different way of showing up.
100%.
And maybe I don't feel things quite so strongly, but also that means that I will show up in a different way. So,
that's exactly right.
Yeah, does that, I mean, probably shouldn't ask you this in the middle of a podcast, but does that ring true for you when what you know about me?
Yeah, it really does. Like, when you were trying to figure out which one you are, I'm just like, oh, I see elements of all three of those in you. Yeah. But I would say you're not as high on the scale as I am, which it's funny that you're like, some part of you wants to be more sensitive. Some part of me wants to be less sensitive, because I think it would be easier to navigate around in the world, Yep. So, and there's parts of it that I love. So, and I can't change who I am any more than you can change who you are.
Exactly.
What I think is amazing is the conversation around there's not one way to be a highly sensitive person. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That we're not a stereotype. We're full-formed human beings, right? Who have these characteristics in some place on the dial. I was using this to show the dial. I don't know. Anyway, some amount of these things we have.
Yeah. Yes. And the reality is that no matter how, I'm still highly sensitive. I'm still more sensitive. I might not be as sensitive as you, but I'm definitely more sensitive than an averagely sensitive person or a not very sensitive person. I am definitely 100%. Highly sensitive.
Yes.
It's just within that, top end of the scale, where am I? And we are who we are. And that's the journey.
That's right.
To be
loving who we are,
to understanding, accepting, and loving who we are.
Yeah.
And I'll shut up in a minute. But partly for me, finding out I was HSP has really helped me love myself.
Yeah.
It's made, I'm not necessarily, I don't have to have a label all the time, but it has really helped me understand who I am and what I need, and look after myself better. There's still more work to do there, but look after myself better, stand up for what I need, boundaries, all of those things that were a complete anathema to me until like 2.5 years ago. And now I can embrace a lot of those with relative ease. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
But for me, it has been a life-changing journey to discover what it really means to be sensitive, and then what that means for myself. Like you're talking about, like what to give my system. And I don't have it all figured out, and it's not perfect, but 3 years ago, I was lying in a dark room with a migraine. Like, so this, I mean, I'm light years from that place.
Yes. Yeah.
And to be able, you mentioned Willow's coaching program, to be able to embrace who I am, like to see, oh, I have these gifts to give the world. So it's not just the negative side of this light gets too bright for me after time. And, I'm sensitive to loud noises and I feel everybody's feelings. I can also talk about how deeply I get to connect with people and how meaningful it is to me to be in big nature, and how I can look at a challenge and see where the hiccup's going to be. Like, there's so many wonderful things that come with being an HSP that I couldn't latch onto before when I was just in survival mode. And so having all of this info and be able to, that's one of the reasons why we both get so excited about talking about the strengths of sensitivity, because it's like, let's give more voice to that. Because it is amazing to be sensitive, and it has its challenges, and it's amazing, you know.
I love that. Yes, it has its challenges and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's both.
It really is. And, you know, we're not denying there are challenges.
Right.
I think there's challenges in being sensitive and not being sensitive. I think we all have challenges in life. And I think finding who we really are, who our true self really is, be it HSP or not, is a big challenge for all of us, because most of us don't grow up having parents who know to ask that question, but who are you and who are you really?
Yeah.
So but to embrace who we find out we are, or that big part of us, you know, I mean, yes, it's innate, it is who we are, but also I don't go round in my life every day telling everybody I'm highly sensitive. You know, I go through my day experiencing the world as I do, and knowing I can tell now that I'm picking up on things that other people aren't picking up on, and I'll circle back to somebody and say, just want to check, are you okay? And you know, and little things like that, or big things. And it is it I don't know about you, but I know when I went through therapy, I then had to tell everybody how wonderful therapy was and go on and on and on about it. Then I discovered I was an HSP, and all I wanted to do was tell everybody I'm an HSP and how wonderful it is. And I feel with both of those things, I have now got to this place in my life where those are quite settled in me.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have a great childhood. I did carry a lot of the stuff from my childhood into my adulthood. I have had a lot of therapy to work through that. I am an HSP, and all of that is settled in me, and I can just be me.
Wow.
Unapologetically, really.
I love that so much. Yes.
You know, so being an HSP is really, really important. It brings such, you know, great deep connections, great conversations, great meaning, great, you know, just, I can't imagine what it's like to not be an HSP.
Right.
You know, please don't take it away. I don't want, I mean, you know, you can't take it away, but even if I could have it taken away, I wouldn't want it taken away. I love going through every day in my life being highly sensitive, and it is just sort of who I am now. Are you there with that?
I think I'm probably not quite as there as you are. I'm way closer to being there than I've ever been before, and it's definitely the road that I'm on. So
Yeah,
you know, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I'm way, and I would say some days I feel like I'm there, and then I get knocked off a little bit, and that usually happens because like I still have health challenges and energy challenges that I deal with, and that, you know, it's an ongoing trying to find all the right mix of things that work well for me and give my system exactly what it needs so I can thrive. So on the days I'm feeling good, it's like, oh, okay, here I am. And the days I'm struggling, you know, it's still sometimes a struggle.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, even though I jokingly go, you know, sometimes I wish I was less sensitive, I really don't think I do, because it would the world would feel muted. It would feel like I was missing something, you know. I don't think I would know how to operate. I would feel a little bit hindered because I do take in so much information and I use it to navigate the world, so that would be weird to not have it.
Yeah. Can you imagine being out in nature with all your big trees and like not feeling
and feel
the way
nothing?
Or just feel
or
like
less.
It's a tree. It's a tree.
Yeah. That would break my heart.
Yeah.
I mean, even thinking about that would break my heart. It's like, oh no, I love the experiences with my trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think, do you think that part of the acceptance and the loving part, the loving piece is to work out how the trait brings us such joy like that?
I do think that's a big part of it. And how it brings us joy, and how it, for me, it's also how I can be helpful to others with my trait, like, and, doing work, soul work, doing work that matters to my heart, using my gifts and strengths, that helps me a lot. That feeds me so much.
Yeah. When I was going through the coaching program, there was a woman in our coaching group, and she wasn't going to be a coach. She was there to learn more about her gift, and she worked for a big company, but she was getting more and more involved in the inclusivity and the diversity and the training and the development side. And she was just brilliant at working out what they needed, what people needed, what sections of their work needed. And so it doesn't just make you a coach. It just so happens we're both coaches, but and actually I do a little bit of work that's not coaching, and I do a little bit of really interesting, not risk and compliance consultancy for a law firm. But I know that my HSP trait helps me in that I can really see the big picture. I can really work out how all these things that I'm working on fit together, and I can hold all the pieces so that if one changes, I know what the knock-on effect on all the others is. And I can do that reasonably easily because that just comes to me really easily. And the woman I work with the other day said to me that she thinks we're a really good match for each other, because I said I'm a bit of a bull in the china shop. She said, you're absolutely not. She said, I'm the bull in the china shop, and you're the one that's actually much more able to get to the root of things. You will have difficult conversations with people. You will connect with people much better than I do, which was really interesting. So, I really do now focus on how I use the trait to serve others, I suppose, not selfishly and to the detriment of myself, but that's what that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help others, and it shows up in different ways in the different aspects of my jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely align with, I'm here to help others.
Yeah.
Not at the detriment of myself, but helping others feeds me. And you highlighted something really great, which is the traits we have as a highly sensitive people help us to be great. I mean, phenomenal coaches. There's just so many things that line up with that. And it helps us, people in any profession, maybe that's too big of a word, in so many professions would benefit from some of these highly sensitive traits.
Yeah.
Because it just can help you in a myriad of ways. I mean, thinking about seeing the big picture, like you talked about, knowing what's going on for somebody and knowing to dig and ask questions, right? Knowing that there's something not quite right here and figuring that out. It's like the literal canary in the coal mine. We could be in a situation and go, something is not right here. And it could be like a danger alert, but it could also be something like, these people are acting like they're fine with each other, but they're not.
Yes.
Like there's just so many things that we pick up.
Yeah.
And for people who aren't aware of the trait, I mean, I've been told so many times, it's just like, how did you know that? You're
Exactly.
how did you? It's like crazy. It's just like, yeah, it's my trait, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's my superpower.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. And going back to the aesthete thing, definitely in offices, we can pick up that I mean, strip lights don't work for anybody. I'm pretty sure they don't. Air conditioning just sort of gives you stale air throughout the building. I don't know, open plan offices and the constant noise. We pick up on those as highly sensitive people, and if we're being bothered by it, the chances, there's going to be at least 20 to 30% of the workforce are being bothered by that, and that's a big chunk. And actually, they don't suit anybody.
They really don't.
And so how can you work with that? I mean, I'm not saying everyone can just go and section off all their workspaces, but how can you build in quiet spaces that people can use? How can you change the lighting? I won't profess to be an expert on that, but can you do, what can you do? We've all got something that we can bring to our current workplace or home or wherever we spend our time. We can use our trait to bring to those places. We can use the way the trait shows up for us in so many different ways. But actually, we've talked all the way here about how the trait shows up for us, and that was a big part of our journey with Willow, wasn't it? Working out how the trait shows up for us. So actually, if you're listening to us and thinking, well, I don't know how the trait shows up for me, please don't worry. You are not alone. And what would you say? I've been talking a lot, and I just wanted to bring you in. Would you have any words of advice for somebody who's thinking, I am HSP, but I'm not quite sure how it's showing up for me?
Well, even just being in that inquiry starts you noticing, because what most of us do without these conversations is we just go through the world and we're ourselves, right? And we naturally have this information come to us, and we naturally create safe places for people to talk. We naturally do these things. We don't think about it because it's just who we are.
Yep.
But if we start to ask ourselves, oh, how does my trait show up? Then we could start noticing. And it's just like, people are always drawn to me to tell me their secrets. Like, that doesn't happen for every human, right? So it's like, oh, I will cry at when nature is just so breathtaking. I noticed that I'm picking up on something, and when I say it, everyone makes a face like, what are you talking about? Because I noticed something they didn't. Like, just, start being in the inquiry with yourself. Start asking, how does my trait show up? And I mean, of course, you can get with professionals. You can hire a coach, 2 great ones here. You could do some classes. You can do a program. You can also just start asking yourself. And if you have someone in your life that you trust, that maybe is part of this conversation with you, knows you're a highly sensitive person, has educated themselves on what that is, you can ask them too, like, what do you notice? What do you think my strengths are? I can start down that road. What do you think, Philippa?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I always talk about, first of all, be aware, raise your awareness, and you're listening to us today. So you're aware that trait is going to be showing up for you somehow. You might not know how, but because we're telling you it absolutely does. So the next is noticing, as you quite rightly say. So, try, and this is where we come into a really, a thing that people find quite tricky is being present. Your conversation, episode 29 with Senia about mindfulness, was very much about being in the moment, being in the present moment with curiosity and kindness. So can you do that? Can you be present with yourself in the moment, not thinking forwards, not thinking back, but in the moment? And can you notice what is showing up for you? What are you feeling? What are you sensing? And maybe, get a new notebook. I love having the excuse to get a new notebook.
Right?
Get a nice new notebook and start writing down things that you are noticing. And you might not even do anything with that information yet, but you will have it available and you might begin to see patterns. You might, if you've got a trusted friend, be able to say, well, I've noticed this. I don't know. So one of the things that I thought everybody could do, and it turns out they can't, is reading the energy in a room, walking into a room and instantly being able to tell whether the energy in that room is okay or not, and whether there's a problem. And you just get that undercurrent of there's something not right here. And not everybody can do that. But I always thought that everybody could do that. So, and I suppose it's tough because would I have known to write that down as something different? Perhaps not. But listening to a podcast like this, I would have realized that that is something I can do. So I'm wondering actually whether we could do an episode soon about see how many ways we can come up with. We might have to see if we can compile a list of all the different ways that the trait shows up for us and for other people that we know, just to give listeners an idea of what might be going on for them. So anybody who's listening who knows, could you perhaps get in touch with us and let us know how the trait shows up for you so that we can compile this list and put it out there so that anybody who's listening who doesn't quite know might get a bit of a better idea for them.
That would be fun.
Yeah. What was your epiphany? Did you have one that was like, oh yeah, this is definitely how the trait shows up for me? I mean, I know there's many, but was there one?
I mean, I was like, oh gosh, one epiphany. It was a series of epiphany after epiphany after epiphany.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what was the first one? Can you remember what the first one was?
I think the first one had to do with it wasn't about a specific trait. It was really about the collective of being a highly sensitive person. But I remember there was a moment that I went from, okay, this is the label for the thing that talks about all the things that's wrong for me and why it's hard to be in the world, to, oh, there's benefits to the way that I am wired. And I can share those. I can use this to help people. And it was like, okay, that's a whole different, it was like, it totally switched the conversation for me. It switched how I felt about myself. It was just one of the, and that happened in Willow's program.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Love that.
It was, and it sent me down the path of being curious about, okay, well, what else is here? What else do I do? And, it was thinking about that for people who are like, I don't know how it shows up. And it can be hard because it's like, well, I breathe. That's just normal. Everybody does that. But that's how some of these traits feel, right? It's just like, yes. I don't know. I just walk in a room and know, like, I'm not doing anything special. It's just, everyone does that, right?
No.
And so what it can be is you don't have to try to think about how you do it differently than other people. Because like you said, you didn't know everyone couldn't do that. But just start thinking about, what do you do? So it's just like, when I walked in a room, I feel the vibe.
I wonder if
I know when someone's lying to me.
Yeah.
I know when they're hiding something. I know when something has touched someone deeply.
Yeah.
I think, as I'm sitting here, it can be hard to do this in a vacuum. I think,
it's very hard to do it
really
in a vacuum. What I was thinking then, sorry, I was interrupting you. What I was thinking then is I wonder if the connection between a few of those things that you just said are all about intuition. So it's not something that we can, that's obvious and that's factual, but do you get a feeling about something that feels very real to you, but you don't really get what that's about or where it comes from? So, saying that you walk into a room and can just feel where the atmosphere is a bit off, that's coming from somewhere inside. That's your intuition telling you there's something wrong here. So I wonder if that could be a way of starting to look at it. Where do you think your intuition is telling you something?
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely your trait at play.
Absolutely. And that reminded me of something the moment you said intuition, because you're right, that is what that is. There, I mean, years, and I'm not exaggerating, years of me saying out loud, oh, I should have trusted my gut.
Yeah.
Because I should have trusted my gut. Oh, I should have trusted my gut, because I would have an intuition and then I would logic myself out of it and I'd go the logic route. And then my intuition proved right. Years of me saying that. And I remember one day going, what if I paid attention to my gut?
Yeah, what if?
And it's like I gave myself permission, and now most of the time I trust my gut. There's still the occasional like, oh, shoot, I missed that one. But it's almost like I flipped it, because it used to be like most of the time I was like, should have trusted my gut. Now it's I trusted my gut. I trusted my gut. Look what happened.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I perhaps instinctively knew that what my gut was telling me was a little bit strange, shall we say, was a little bit unusual, a little bit different. And I didn't learn to trust it for a long time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I say I'd never even heard of high sensitivity, didn't know I was highly sensitive, but I knew the more I talk about it, the more I realize I knew there was something, but I couldn't even begin to articulate it, and didn't know that it was something different in me, probably different to a lot of the people I was spending time with. Maybe if I had spent time with somebody who was highly sensitive, who was in tune with their high sensitivity, I might have got it. But I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, I believe these things happen when we're ready for them. So yeah, wow. I did wonder whether would we have enough to talk about, and would we segue into another topic? But actually, I think we've done this one proud. That's perhaps not the right word, but we've talked a lot about it. We've managed to find a lot to talk about, because it is really important, because it's the first step, isn't it, to understanding ourselves better, understanding the trait, and accepting that is what is going on for us. It's also exciting. I'm getting really excited at the idea of more people realizing this about themselves. And yeah, come on, HSPs everywhere, learn. You have the trait, because it's we need more HSPs.
Yeah. Yes, it's like an awakening.
Yeah,
it's learning that you have it, and then knowing the good that comes from it, because and that's why we're so passionate about sharing things like the strength and sensitivity, because we've grown up hearing the other messages.
Yeah.
Right. It's a weakness. It's blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But there's so much that it offers, not just to ourselves, but to the world. Like, we are a valuable part of the fabric of society, and we have a lot to offer. And so as more and more people wake up to their strengths, like, it will create a better world for us. This is where I go to my lofty place, but it's like, I just get so excited about it, because not only will individuals have more meaning in their life and feel more fulfilled and be happier and be able to be here I am and feel good about it, they will also be contributing their strength into society, which helps all of us. Exactly. It's a win. It's a win-win-win all around.
It is a win-win. And when I said we need more HSPs, what I mean is we need more conscious, aware HSPs. Yeah. And I also just want to add that we're not trying to do some sort of spiritual bypass on the challenges of the trait. We are well aware that there are challenges, and there are lots of books and lots of places you can read about the challenge. And part of our desire to talk about the good side of the trait, the benefit, the joy, the superpower of the trait, is because we have read a lot of the downside of the trait, and we've lived that. We have lived through the downside of the trait. And we are absolutely not bypassing that. So if you are at a place that, you know you're in HSP and you're not in a good place, I mean, our hearts absolutely go out to you. We hope by hearing us talk about it that you too can feel that you can get to a place with it where we are, where we see the strength in it and see the joy and the benefit and would not want to be any different. But we certainly don't want to come across as bypassing all that side. We're not, but we are here to talk primarily about the good side of it, if that's an okay thing to call it.
Yeah. I'm really glad you mentioned that. Thank you for bringing that into the talk, because you're right. We don't, I'm not trying to Pollyanna it. I'm not trying to pretend it's not there. We're not trying to bypass it. And truly, part of my own healing was in discovering the strength. Like, so being able to see what it is I offered the world helped heal some of the pain from the other stuff. And then I really educated myself on what my system needs in order to thrive. So, and I have a therapist and a coach, multiple coaches. So it's definitely, I've gotten support, and I want to encourage people to do that. But there are, like Philippa mentioned, there's resources out there, and we are with you. We stand with you. And our hope is to be hope, a ray of hope for people, and to know it's not all the hard stuff. There's this whole magical side to it.
There is. And we're both feeling quite magical today, which is why we've come to talk about the magical side of it. That's right. And we have talked about, the episode on forgiveness still stays with me. And, you weren't in a great place when you brought that subject to us. Yeah. And, so enjoy this magical moment with us, because we don't know what you're going to get next. And
you'll get real humans. That's what
you'll
get.
Real humans, for sure. So I think that could be that's it for today. What anything we've missed that you want to say before we sign off?
No, I think we've said it. I mean, we could always talk about these things forever, but we've given people hopefully a good place to dig in for themselves. It's really great to be back chatting with you, my friend.
It is. We haven't done one like this for quite a while now. It's been too long.
Yes.
But we're back. Good.
Yay.
So I think for now it's bye for me.
And bye from me.
Thanks for listening to HSP Connection. If you've enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Also, we'd really appreciate it if you could rate the podcast and share it with anyone you think might be interested. It helps others find us. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review.
To get in touch with us, you can email us at hspconnectionpodcast@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you with your thoughts and comments on the episodes and any suggestions you have for future topics and guests.
We are both HSP coaches and speakers. And to find out more about Robbie, go to Robbie Lee, that's leigh.com.
And to find out more about Philippa, go to safeandsupported.co.uk. See you next time.